What's going on, YouTube? This is Acadius, and today we're going to be talking about Ultima Online. You're going to learn a thing or two about an Ultima Online or two. Nice pun for those that are old enough to understand it. Also, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share, tick the bells, tell your friends, put it on a paper airplane and throw it out of a skyscraper window. Don't do that. Maybe do that. Don't do that. So for those of you who have never heard of Ultima Online because they play MMOs, living under a rock in their mom's basement, UO is widely considered to be the grandfather of all MMOs. It was designed as a sandbox game, and in typical fashion, the players dropped in and expected to make their own way in the world. There were no quests or any directions to guide the players on release, and no tutorials to teach us how to play. Tutorials were added later. It was up to the player to make up what they should be doing at any given moment. It was up to the players to make up what they should be doing at any given moment and sort of just make their own adventure. We didn't have maps other than the mini-map, and badly drawn paper maps created by players using the cartography skill. UO Automap didn't come out until much later and was a third-party creation. Because of this, exploring with friends, Romans, and fellow countrymen was the best and safest way to find your way around the world. Traveling around the world was done on foot, on various mounts, by moon gates, or by the mage spells Recall and Gate. The world was pleasant to wander around in, with plenty of attractions to visit, a large variety of monsters to battle, and a ton of totally defenseless animals to kill and butcher. There's even a mage town called Wind that only a select few can even get into. Wind is a hidden city that is protected by the hidden dungeon that only you can enter, assuming you have at least 70 magery. Otherwise, you can keep it knocking, but Asmongold isn't getting in. Speaking of dungeons that only anyone can enter, assuming they have 70 magery, dungeons are full of tricks and traps with hidden paths that sometimes lead even deeper into their grim dark depths, but be careful not to delve too deep and too greedily, because some of the deadliest monsters lie in wait at the end of some of those paths. There are a lot of things to do in UO, and it's entirely possible to spend years playing UO without engaging in PvP. People have done it, and still do it, to this day, even on PvP servers. Question: are you tired of fishing in games that don't properly reward your time spent? Maybe you enjoy fishing, but don't feel like you are contributing much more than being a glorified food buff dispenser. Well, don't fret, friend. UO has a solution for you. As you increase in fishing skill, you will eventually be able to start fishing up messages in a bottle. This will lead you to a location out in the deep ocean where you will be able to fish up a treasure chest full of loot. It will always be guarded by monsters, so don't forget to bring some friends on your journey across the waves. But maybe you like dungeon crawl, but wouldn't it be nice if that could more directly benefit your guild? Well, don't fret, friend. UO has the solution for you. Anytime you kill a monster, it has a small chance to drop a tattered treasure map, which can then be decoded by a player using the cartography skill. The stronger the monster, the higher level the treasure map can be, and the more rare those maps become. Once decoded, it will lead to somewhere on land that you will have to dig up using the mining skill. Once the treasure chest is fully dug up, monsters will spawn and a chaotic fight will begin. Let's hope that whoever the unlucky soul is that's doing the digging has maxed out their hiding skill. Also, that treasure chest is going to be locked and trapped, so you're going to need some lock picking and some disarm trap skills as well. So, now that we have entered the dungeon and begun acquiring some gear, let's talk about the gear in UO and address the common misconception that gear was easy to come by in UO. That's why, the hardcore full loot PvP system worked. First, you have base gear, which is any gear that isn't magic and wasn't crafted by a blacksmith with a significant amount of skill. All of the base gear is extremely common as drops and can be affordably purchased from vendors. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Acadius, that sounds a lot like common white or green gear that I get in all the modern MMOs that I play, and duh, it's super common. To which I would say, exactly. more on that later. Next up would be Grandmaster crafted gear, and that begins with iron ingots and then scales up to the different colors of the ingots. Now there is some overlap with GM crafted gear and low tier magic gear, but at some point it becomes cost inefficient to buy top tier GM crafted gear instead of just finding low tier magic gear. This range would be represented by modern day blues and yellows. And now you might be thinking to yourself, but wait, that tier of gear is also super common in the games I currently play as well. To which I say, exactly. More on that later. And this brings us to the magic weapons and armor. The rarity of these items runs the gamut from extremely common to extremely rare, despite only having 5 tiers of power, plus a couple other modifiers. For instance, it would be easy to get an accurate, durable crossbow of ruin, but very difficult to get your hands on a supremely accurate, indestructible halberd of vanquishing. And such a weapon would of course be worth quite a large sum of gold. And on a side note, it is definitely worth mentioning that there's no such thing as account bound, soul bound, anything at all, except for the holiday stuff that was decorations for houses, right? There's no gear, nothing. So you could freely trade gear in this game, all you wanted to, sell it, whatever you wanted to do. Now, at the highest tier, with the best modifiers, magic gear can become extremely rare and valuable, and those items are the equivalent of high tier legendaries. And now you may be thinking, well, that gear isn't so easy to come by in modern MMOs either. To which I say, exactly. And now you should be getting the point I've been driving at. So, you ask the question, was gear common in UO? Technically, yeah, garbage throwaway loot was certainly common. But not the absolute top roll gear, and you could say the same thing for all MMORPGs. Now, if you wanted to put together a complete set of top tier gear, then it would require a considerable time investment made by a maxed out character, or a king's fortune to buy it all. Sounding familiar yet? This is why most PvP was done while wearing GM crafted gear using iron ingots and low tier magic gear. And that level of gear was certainly common, but it isn't any more common than it is in any other more modern MMO. And my final point to put this matter to bed is a simple thought experiment. Just imagine to yourself, what would the economic landscape of World of Warcraft look like if they never had any account-bound or soul-bound loot, and all loot was freely tradable or sellable? How would that change things? It would certainly change the landscape quite a bit. This would allow even small guilds, 5 or 10 man guilds back in the day of 40 man guilds, who couldn't get enough members, they can't get it together to be able to do a 40 man raid. It would allow these people to get raid tier gear, if they wanted to, if they could afford it. They would allow solo players to get raid tier gear if they were wanting to do the amount of grinding that it would take to be able to buy this gear. And I know you might be thinking, what, solos and small time guilds being able to compete against top tier raiders? Heresy! Burn them! Yeah, who cares? Who cares? And in reality, that stuff happened back in the day in World of Warcraft. Anyways, people would pay crazy amounts of gold, sometimes RMT, in order to get guaranteed this item that drops from this guy. The raid, they just keep joining that raid until that item finally drops, and they would guarantee that it went to this person because they paid whatever amount of money. So, that stuff happened anyways. So now, hopefully, we can both agree that prevalence of weapons and armor in UO is not what made the hardcore full loot PvP system work. And with that misconception addressed, let's take a look at guilds, and by extension, factions. Now, first, guilds. They were created by placing a furniture item in or on the steps of your house, which you could then access, called a guild stone, and to create your guild. And in order to invite a player to your guild, you would need to bring them actually to the guild stone so that you can click on their character model. Now, once you're part of the guild, The guild members were actually able to freely attack each other whenever they wanted, which allows for dueling between guild members, and it was great fun. It also allows for backstabbing, and that was also great fun. I didn't do the backstabbing, it's the other way around. That's a whole different story. But anyways, I look back on it fondly. That's all that matters. Now, just like modern games, guilds can gain notoriety on their servers by either growing large enough or by being a small but highly skilled group. Guilds could also declare war on each other. And they did this, maybe because they got into it, some of their members got into it, and they're like, rah, rah, we hate you now. Or maybe you were in a big guild like mine, and we didn't give a flying shit, and so we just went down the list, clicking on all the guilds on the server, and just declare war to everyone. Everyone! Now, to be fair, both guilds did have to consent to this war, and either guild could end it whenever they'd had enough. But, as I mentioned before, many of the larger guilds, like the one I was in for the 6 years that I played UO, simply went down the list and declared war on every single other guild on the server. And believe me, that list was massive. Trust me, I know, because it took us a few days to go through the entire list. And there were 3 of us that were putting in the time each day to get through it all. Now, you may be asking yourself, why would you do such a thing? You would be at war with the entire server, dude. And the answer to that is obvious, right? Like, why not? Bring it! Let's go! Now, I should probably mention that you could also make alliances with other guilds as well. You can all be friends and be happy with your rainbows and your unicorns. But who the hell would want to do that? Kill them all. And the last point on guilds in general is that being part of a guild was the only way to participate in the faction wars between order and chaos. Taking part in the war between the factions is completely optional and should be a majority vote within the guild. Players that are murderers will not be allowed to participate in faction wars, and if you have any red players in your guild, they will be removed from the guild if you declare allegiance to a faction. So, this brings me to factions. Now, factions were something. Okay? No matter if you joined order or chaos, it was chaos. Right? If you had to join a guild to become a faction. You join a guild, and then your guild declares allegiance to either faction. Doesn't matter. And then, from then on, you are kill on sight to the opposing faction. It doesn't matter if you're in town or not in town. As soon as you see those orange names pop up, it's game on. Red names, I think it's orange names. It's game on. They're going to attack you. They're going to jump you. Period. You needed to roll deep at all times, or else you're just going to die repeatedly. Well, I need to get a little bit of gold out of the bank. Okay, well, let me get some buddies so I can go to the bank. That's how it was back then. But, as I said before, you need a house to start a guild, and there were a lot of houses to choose from. The cheapest house was about 50,000, and the most expensive was a castle at about 1 million. You also had 3 different sized boats to choose from. Using a small boat and inexpensive boat was fine for a solo player just trying to get their fish on. But if you were planning on completing a message in a bottle, then you would certainly want a larger ship to have more room to move around on while you were fighting. There were a lot of monsters. You need tons of room here. And trust me, pirates were also definitely a thing in UO. So be wary if you encounter other players on the high seas. Now, with all that behind us, we can now begin discussing the elephant in the room. The PK in your closet waiting to attack you from stealth. The hardcore full loot PvP game hiding under your bed that will kill you in your sleep and take everything you have, even the worthless stuff, which then gets thrown around in your yard, just to make you have to pick it all back up again. Ask me how I know. Maybe it's in the shape of a dick. Probably was, especially if it was me. Now, before I dive into that, I just want to say, I've heard people say that UO was a PvP game. And, I mean, I suppose if you ignore the fact that there was so much PvE content that you never really had to PvP in order just to have something to do. In fact, there were guilds that refused to PvP at all, even on PvP servers. So, to say UO was a PvP game is just disingenuous. Ultima Online is a PvP game in the same way that Hunt Showdown is a PvE game. And the other thing I've heard is the statement that an MMORPG that allows full looting of a player's body after death cannot succeed in modern times. And both of these statements are just wrong. If you do it right, it'll work. It's my belief that people who say this probably have no idea about the extreme checks and balances that existed in UO. So, let's go over those. Murdering an innocent player would earn you a murder count. You can check on your current murder count by typing in, "I must consider my sins," into the chat log. This will tell you how many hours you have to wait for those kills to fall off. Each murder count is worth 24 hours in-game playtime to fall off. Your character is considered a murderer if you have 5 or more kills. Your name will turn from blue to red, and you will no longer be able to enter any cities that have town guards, or you will be killed instantly by the guards. And let's be perfectly clear on the subject of these guards. These guards are invincible. They kill you in one hit no matter what your build is or what your gear is, doesn't matter. And they teleport onto your face. So, yeah, it's instant death. Now, speaking of being killed while you are a murderer, each time you die while your name is red, you will receive a permanent 10% hit to all stats and skills. They don't come back unless you build your character back up the normal way. And this is in a game where you don't level up. All your character's power comes from stats and skills and then gear. So we see that the consequences for being a red player is quite severe. Also, other players will know if you are a questionable character just by looking at you due to the famed karma system. So, they are going to know you may attack them ahead of time and prepare for it. So, let's just paint a picture here. You're a red. You're a 7-time GM. That's 7 skills maxed out at 100 each. Grandmaster. You go out, you bite off more than you can chew, you get killed. All skills, all stats go from 100 down to 90. And you're like, oh man, that sucks. Well, we'll just build it right back up. Okay. And so you go to do that in your nerfed condition, and then you die again. That's another 10%. Because you're still red. Just because you die doesn't mean that your red disappears. Those kill counts are still there. So now you gotta do it again. What are you now? Like 81, 82 per skill? You're still red again. Yeah, good luck. Now, shortly after release, PKs were certainly very common. But as soon as people started dying as reds and realized how harsh the consequences were, a lot of them stopped being a red and let their kills drop off. So the longer UO was out, the less common PKs became until it was just the most hardcore players that were still doing it. Every time a red died, they would have to then skill their character back up to max using their now gimped character, who is definitely still a murderer, and if they died again trying to skill back up, then they would take another 10% hit to all skills and stats again, over and over and over. Not surprisingly, not a whole lot of people want to suffer through this process over and over. And just imagine if your character had something like 75 murder counts. That's what we called perma-red. So, can you make a hardcore full loot PvP system work in an MMO? Of course you can. Provided that you have harsh punishments for those that choose to go around murdering other players in order to take their stuff, and you give the innocent players proper methods to try and sniff out the impending attack. Also, the game did have a bounty system in place, where a player who is murdered is given the choice to post a sum of gold as a bounty against the other player who killed them. Anyone could check the available bounties at the nearest bank on the bounty board and then try and track down and kill the offending player for the bounty. In order to claim said bounty, you merely needed to brutally chop up the player's corpse and then put their severed head into your inventory and then take that severed head to a town guard and give it to them in order to get paid. Now, did some players kind of exploit that system in order to make a little bit more money? Of course they did. No system is perfect, but it was a cool feature nonetheless. So, was UO awesome? Or is it just me being nostalgic? Who knows? I still think UO was great for its time, in its day. You know, first of its kind. Come on, man, I think they did a great job here. And when you think about all the things you could do in UO that no other games still have done, like bards being able to force monsters to fight each other, like being able to mark a rune and then cast a spell to teleport to wherever you mark that rune, like treasure hunting and messages in bottles, guild wars that were voluntary and faction wars that were voluntary, like a hidden dungeon that's wrapped around a hidden city that only characters with at least 70 majory can even access. And then how can you not think UO was great? I have no idea. Did you know that if players broke the terms of service in UO, then they weren't just banned from playing for a set amount of time? That's dumb, in my opinion. From a business perspective, that's dumb. Nope. Instead, they were transported to an in-game jail where they would be forced to serve a sentence of a set amount of actual in-game time sitting at their computer but unable to do anything meaningful. No skill gain or spell casting was allowed. Trying to macro your time away would result in a permaban. And you know what? If I ever developed an MMORPG, then I would do the same thing. But while the player is sitting there, stuck in their jail cell, I would be constantly playing ads for them to watch and prompting them to buy things from my store. Because if they're going to mess around in my game and ruin the play experience for my other users, then I'm going to make some money off of their dumbasses. You gotta farm the assholes all night long, baby. Hey, Asmongold, let me know if you're hiring and you want to make a ton of money, because I got those 9-digit ideas, bro. So, before I go, I just want to paint a picture as to why the hardcore full loot aspect of UO actually worked. And let's start with the point of view, right? Just imagine you're, minding your own business. You're the blue guy, you're the goody guy, doing the right thing, minding your own business out there, chopping some wood. And then a name appears on the edge of your screen. That name is either going to be blue, gray, or red. And let's just say it's not red, because that's obviously run your ass off, coming. They're going to kill you. Let's say it's blue, not even gray. Gray is a criminal. So, again, that's already an alert. It's blue. But it's got negative karma. Well, that can tell you right there. The negative karma rating, the nefarious or the dreadlord or the scoundrel, whoever, the scoundrel Asmongold is coming from the edge of your screen. That guy probably isn't up to much good there, Maybe you want to be wary. You might even want to hide yourself if you have the ability to just disappear. But yeah, you can see him coming from any direction, right? You're not in a first person's perspective, Mortal Online 2. So you already see him coming. You have a few seconds to prepare before they get to you. Or you could just immediately run away. This is what helped it to work. And then, even if they do kill you and their name was blue, well, now they get a murder count because you report them. And that's 24 hours they're going to have to wait if they were to turn red from that kill count. Or at the very least, it's adding up towards their kill count to make them red on the next kill or the kill after. So people just couldn't walk around destroying people all willy-nilly all the time, the way people want to portray it in UO. That just didn't really happen. So then, let's say you take the fight They engage you, they're blue. When they engage you, they're going to turn gray. Now they're doing something criminal. You could either try to bait them into guards and get them guard whacked. You could maybe just fight them straight up and win and then take their stuff, you know, or maybe try to find some players to help you out, because hey, that's free loot for them, right? If they jump in, they kill that gray with you, that's free loot for them, and when they die, everybody just starts ripping their body apart, taking all their freaking loot off of them. So, you know, at least you're not getting caught unawares, and you have different ways to deal with it, let alone just straight running away. So let's say you took the fight, but you kind of got your butt kicked. Yeah, they get a murder count, but what did you lose? You know, you're not probably running around with your most valuable gear on you. That's probably back at your house. You know, you're probably running around with like a mid-tier set of gear on you. So, well, you just go re-equip, because gear is common in this game, just like it is, you know, mid-tier gear is common in this game, just like in Diablo or in World of Warcraft or any other game. So you're really not out that much. And then the next thing you do is, back then, we had a kill on sight list. And so you write that guy's name down on your kill on sight list. And then go back to your buddies and say, hey, this guy here, roundabouts this area, killed me, took my shit, look for him, destroy him. You know? And then that's what you do. And you just build a kill on sight list with your buddies. And then you go hunt these people down yourselves. And get revenge. You know? In UO, we had a tracking skill. Oh man, a tracking skill. So if they caught you at a bad spot, and you know you can probably take this guy, then okay, well, you res back at town, you re-equip as fast as you can, you run back out there where you died at, use your tracking skill, and then start tracking that guy down. And your tracking skill will lead you right to wherever that guy went. It's not like you go back there and you're like, oh man, where's this guy? I could take him. You know, like, round 2, let's go, now that I'm ready for a fight. And he caught me, you fighting a monster, and I was half dead and just came up and whacked me one time. You know, and I have no repercussions whatsoever. You have ways to get back at these people, you know, so that you can feel vindicated. But in a lot of other games, not so much. But as for myself, that's why I always carried a fast-hitting weapon with deadly poison on it, just in case somebody tried to mess with me. I just switched to my dagger with deadly poison and ting 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 until the deadly poison procs, and then I just switched to my halberd, and then I start chasing them down and kill them. If they can't stop and heal, then they're just done. So that's my 2 cents on UO. If you join me on a future video where I probably am going to be talking about why UO clones fail, like Mortal Online 2, my 2 cents on that game and others. Thanks for watching and listening. I hope you've learned something from this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, then like this video, and also subscribe, comment in the sections below. I'll try to respond to you if I can. If you want to reminisce about UO times, tell some UO stories, you know, in the comments, I'll be happy to chime in with you, man. I got a ton of them. Maybe I'll make a video one day just telling stories about what happened in my UO days. But until then, I'll see you in my next video, where probably I will discuss why UO clones always fail.